So I'm going to show you how to make this little guy to go on our little display with our fantasy fairy fungi. Let's get started. Right, first off you'll need a kebab stick and a little cocktail stick. So first of all we're going to take the kebab stick. Now I've got some wool here which is called mouse and it's from World of Wool. So I've approximately got 5 inches including the fluffy bits. So I'm just going to take half of that. Now we don't want him big, so what we're going to do is we're going to wrap it around the wool, around the kebab stick. Okay. And then we're going to bring it back so you get a nice point. I'm just going to take my 40 twisted and I'm just going to secure that. Okay, now I've got approximately about 2.5 inches there. Okay, so I'm just going to take my next, it's better to go in stages, so I'm just going to take my next bit of wool and I'm just going to wrap it and go up and back. Okay, so we're just going to do the same again. Just going to secure that. Okay, so I'm just going to go a bit round. Right, so with our next bit of wool we're just going to concentrate on the back end, really, on his body. I might need a little bit more on here, but he doesn't want to be overly fat. So I think I will just put a tiny bit more, not too much, just a tiny bit, and we can use up the rest. So that's about 1 inch, and I've just teased it out. So I'm just going to put that on his back, not going near the head, which is that pointy bit there. Okay. So I'm just using a cocktail stick and go around. Just going to go in there and I'm just going to poke that way a bit. Right, we're going to slide it off now, and it should come off nice and easily, so you end up with that shape. So I'm just going to take this needle into his bottom. Now I'm just going to work that nose down a little bit. Now I'm going to take some other bits of wool and I'm going to lay it in the opposite direction, and what this does is it smooths it and strengthens it, because it's the fibres going into the opposite way to what we wrapped. Okay, just going to take that around there, and we're just going to go around all sides. So that next bit I'm just going to lay there, so we're just building it up and securing that roll. And because we wrapped it on the kebab stick, it is already quite tight in there. Okay, so we just need a little bit more there, so we're just building it up. I'm just going to put a bit more on there. So you could make these slightly bigger and have them in a teacup or on another display that you're making. Just adds a little feature. So I'm just going to take that round his bottom and that up there, so it's all being built up. And you can see his body's a bit fatter than his head. We're just working into that. So we're just working all ways. So I'm just going to come back the other way now. Okay. And this is all with a 40 twisted. And the brilliant needles, these twisted. Really love them. Okay, so just gonna put that a bit more. That needs to be quite tight for his little nose to go on in a minute. So I'm just kind of determining where his head and neck ends and his body starts. So you end up with that kind of shape. Okay, and that is at this stage approximately just under 2.5 inches, and that will shrink a little bit more. So I'm just going to put in there. Now I've got some of this flesh colour here, but you could use pink, or you could even use the same colour you've used there for his ears and nose. You could do it black if you haven't got any flesh coloured or pink. So I'm not using too much for his ears. So I'm just taking off 2 small pieces and I'm just doing some little round shapes. Then I'm just bringing that over like that. Now I'm just going to do this one next to it. Leave the fluffy bit on the end because we will need that to attach it. So we're just going to bring that round. Just going to take that off, turn it over. I'm just going to these wispy bits are good for holding them so you don't get your fingers too close. You could of course use some pre-made felt and just cut it into the shapes and then glue it on or stitch it on. A bit of debris there. So I'm just gonna smooth that in there. And I'm just going to cut off these fluffy bits. You could use your straighteners at this stage just to iron them flat if you wanted. Cutting off these fluffy bits. Right, so that's my ears. Now I'm just going to give them a little bit of definition, so I'm just going to felt right into that centre bit on both, just so it makes them curl a bit. Right, so now we need to decide how far back we're going to have them. So I think about there. So I'm going to just place the first one. You can use pins to put them in place. So I'm just felting that round and just felting into the ear to get it in. Okay, so that's one. And then the other one is going to go on the other side. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it there. So that's his ears. So now we're just going to take a little bit of the mouse colour and we're just going to cover that up, that bit there. So again, this is just, it's just all about layering, covering up, and that help at join and hold the ears on. And the same the other side. Okay, so we're just gonna put that there. Felt that all over. Right, I'm quite pleased with that. So his little ears are on, and we can play around with them a bit, and if we want to. So I'm just gonna go into his nose a bit more. Right, so he now looks like that. So now we're just going to take a little bit of this flesh colour here, and I'm just going to position it over his nose where I want it roughly, and then I'm going to scoop it up and push it in. And keep pushing it in until you've got it how you want it. So I'm just going to go around that little nose. I'm just going to put in just keep working that until you're happy with it. Okay. Okay, so he looks like that now. So now we're going to make the feet. So we're just going to pop in there a minute. So we're going to take a little bit of our flesh colour, got a little bit more, and this time we're going to take our little cocktail stick. Now we don't need much for these feet. Move that needle out of the way. So we're just going to anchor it there, and then we're just going to twist it up and then twist it back, and then we're just going to concentrate on the middle bit. Okay, now you could add a little bit more if you want. I think I might make them a little bit fatter, so I'm just going to add a little bit more wool to the center part. Just felt round, just turn the stick, but just bear in mind you have got a stick in there. So now that is roughly about an inch. Okay, so I'm gonna do this one. Might need a bit more. So we're just gonna wrap it around there and then come back down. Yeah, I will need more. A little bit more here. Probably won't need all this, so I'm just going to anchor that on there. Right, I think they're about even. Yeah, they feel about right. So that one's about an inch, yeah, so try and get them quite even. Right, so we're just going to slide them off, put that over there, so you end up with two little sort of cotton bud tops. Right, so we're just going to put them to one side for a minute. Now, this little mouse is curled up, so we're just going to start shaping him. So we're just going to squeeze, and we're just going to take the needle in there. Can you see his little nose is going to come round? Just got to be careful not to jab your fingers. Into his back. Hold him quite tight because he wants to spring forth. Those little ears, we can play around with those in a minute. So we're just going to bring his tail up, his bum up, his bottom, and we're just curling that round. And then we're just going in the sides. And we're just going in that side. Now when we get to this stage, he's like that. What we're going to do is we're going to take these feet. Now we're just going to, on the more secure end, we're going to push that in and then just felt it a little bit, so that makes it a bit more stable and a better shape. So it's like a little rounded off rather than a point. And the same with this one, so we're just going to go in that end and push that wool in, and that will secure it. Okay. Do that all over. So we're just going to rub them in our fingers and you can feel if they're secure or not. They might need a little bit more felting. Then we're just going to pop his feet on. So we're just going to go on to his tail end. And we're just securing that on. So we've got one there and then the other one on the other side. Bit fiddly, you can put a pin in it to hold it if you like. Especially if you're you know, a bit nervous about them being in the wrong position. So that's what he looks like at the moment. So we're just gonna secure that. I'm just going to use a little bit of the mouse just to cover those. So we're going to go the opposite way. I'll just secure them, and we're just going to take that up his back and work that in. So all over, around his belly. This is a very sleepy little mouse. And he's all curled up, all cozy. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put his eyes on. So he's asleep. So we're just going to do an indication of where his eyes are. So we've got his ears there. Now we're just going to get our needle and we're just going to, if he was bigger you could put him sort of eye buds so that his eyes are a bit more protruding, but because he's so little I'm just doing them roughly where they would be. I'm going to do both sides because I'm not sure which way I want him to be turning, which way I want him to be lying when he's in our display. I might have him loose in there or I might have him glued down. I haven't decided yet, so I'm just getting a little bit of dark brown for his eye socket, his eyelashes, which is basically just going to be, so I've just got a piece here, it's a tiniest little bit, and I'm just going to put that in. So I'm just holding it in place, and then on the line that we drew with our needle I'm just going to so he's fast asleep, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. So tiniest bit, tiny bit, even smaller than that, just a tiny bit. So we're just going to put that there, and I'm just going to right, so there he is. So we're just going to, I want to bring his feet up a little bit and his face down a little bit. And because these are all handmade, they will all look different. You know, they are all unique. He's all snuggled up, this one. Just watch your fingers. I'm just going to take that down. Now we just need to do his tail. So I'm just going to measure and about there, I think. So I'm just going to use my pipe cleaner, cut that off, and then I'm just going to trim off all the excess fluff into the bin. So just trimming that off. So that's your pipe cleaner, or you could use any fine wire that you've got. Now I'm going to use my prick stick to just going to trim that very end bit again, because I want it really, I don't want any lumps in it. It's got to be fine. could use cotton covered wire or any wire really. So I'm just going to put a little bit of my Pritt stick on the end, and that just helped my wool grip even better and just start off. So I haven't got much wool here, so I'm just going to start back from the end a little bit, go to the end, and then I'm just going to tease that out. I'm going to hold that right on the tip, because in a minute I'm just going to smooth that over. Oh, it's come off a bit. Let's see if I can catch it up again. Yep. Okay, we're just going to take that back down a fraction just to use all that wool up. I'm just going to secure that, and then what I'm going to do, take some of this Pritt stick, or you could use your wool, your wax or whatever you use. Just twisting it round. It's just going to help secure that on there. And I'll cut that off at the end. So now that that's just drying for a minute or two, doesn't take long, I'm just going to go over them a little bit more. You can put his feet sort of like that if you want, and just secure them down. I'm just securing his feet a little bit. His little nose, you can bend them. It just gives you kind of moulding the wool into how you want him to look. So you are sculpting with the wool. And you can twist his ears a bit. I think he looks quite cute. So I'm just going to put his tail on now. So just sort of where we attach the feet, we're just going to put his tail there. So I'm just making a indentation with my needle, and that should be sufficient. And I'm just going to offer that up. Yeah, that's going in quite a way. You could use a bradawl or awl if you want. Yep. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on there. And then I'm going to secure it with wool as well. Okay. So I'm just going to push that excess wool in. Right there. Okay, he's got a long tail, this one. So I'm just going to take a little bit of wool, not too much, about that much, not much at all really. Then I'm just going to anchor it to his back. And then I'm just going to take it round the base of the tail. This is quite fiddly, so take your time, and then I'm going to come back up. So it's literally just a few, probably half a centimetre up the tail. and I'm just going to use that to hold the tail in place. Okay, he's looking cute, so I'm just going to go around there. Okay, so I'm just going to cut that little bit off the end. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. So now, I'm not sure which way I'm going to have him lie in, but I'm going to do him the opposite way to what I did the other mouse. So I'm just going to bring his tail up, and I'm just going to put it like that. So he's all cozy with his little tail wrapped round him. So there we go, our two little mice. Now I can go into this one a little bit more. And then he'll lie a bit flatter. Yeah, it's quite sweet. Just fiddling with his tail here. They look really cute. You could have his tail that way, you just have to decide. Could go around his ear like that, so that he's hugging himself. That looks quite cute actually. I think he works better that way. I just need to, yeah, definitely works better that way, this one. So I'm just going to anchor that bit of fluffiness from his tail. Just hold his tail in place. So here are our two little finished mice. As you can see, one's slightly bigger than the other, but as I said, you know, these things are handmade and you will get slight variations in them. This one I didn't really measure. That one I measured as I made him. And they are going to go on our fantasy fairy display, which I have started filming. I'm just going to zoom out a minute so you can see a little bit more. So I've started putting it together, and our little mouse is going to fit in there nicely. So when this is all displayed, and then I have made a little leaf that's just going to pop over him, so he's sort of undercover. So I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and I hope you'll join me for the tutorials for the fantasy fairy fungi and for the how to display it. So hope to see you again real soon. Take care all.